park. I can have the same mobile home park as Amanda, but if I don't run it as efficiently and reduce the cost of the mobile home park, Amanda's mobile home park will be worth more than my mobile home park. So that's a little different than your residential side. So if I have a 3,600 square foot house and my next door neighbor has a 3,600 square foot house and his sells for 290,000, regardless of what's done to it, mine's going to be around 290,000. So that's a little different when you're dealing with commercial real estate, right? So we'll talk a little bit about the categorized. So we got housing, right? That's multifamily units, 5 doors or more, right? So anything 4 doors or less is still considered residential. Anything 5 doors and up is considered commercial, right? You got hotels. Hotels are, luxury. They're temporary living, but you have the opportunity nowadays that people are taking hotels and converting them into studio apartments. And there's a lot of rules and regulations that go into that depending on the town that you live in. I talked to a lady today. I was at a mastermind prior to coming here, and she actually is doing a hotel to studio apartment renovation. And the county she lived in just made it mandatory that each studio apartment must have their own circuit breaker. So when you go to a hotel, you notice there's no real circuit breakers in your hotel room. It's because they're all ran off of, they're a larger circuit breaker. But now she has to go in. She's got to file for permits and talk to an electrician and see how much that's going to cost. And it's going to be pretty costly, right? Then you have retail. That's your clothing shops, your restaurants, your electronic stores, and your supermarkets, right? You can find those just like you can find anything else off market. They're pretty good as well. I don't deal in retail, so I don't know too much about retail, but if there's somebody in the room currently that has experience in retail, I would love to talk to you, and maybe you can teach a class on the retail portion. Office, right? That means your work areas, your conference rooms, your hearing, your drafting areas. When you go to they're big on the West Coast, they open up the areas and they coordinate off desk and they rent per desk. So that's why commercial real estate is really good at making money, because you can monetize it. If you have a big open office space, right, and you have the self-employees that are just working for themselves, they can go rent a desk from you and work there and get away from the house. Industrial, that's your manufacturing, your warehouses, your storage, your distribution centers. If you live in Fayetteville, Amazon is taking over the new Black & Decker warehouse, and that's going to be a new distribution center. Walmart has a distribution center here in the Fayetteville area. Apple's coming to Raleigh. You also have your storage units, right? That's me too. I have a storage unit. It's 40 units, sitting on 2.5 acres of land with room to grow up to 200. So that's pretty. I'm pretty stoked about that deal. Special purpose, limited use, a building that cannot be converted without a large capital investment. And the way you get the special use is pretty much a zoning change, right? So if you were running a gas station and they changed that area to industrial, unless you put a large capital investment into that, you can't turn it into manufacturing. So you have to that will be a special purpose commercial store, right? And then we'll move right on along. Do we have any questions so far? I see 6 people. Okay. All right, so no questions currently about the slides. Okay, so I'll keep moving on. All right, so classes, right? So as we ride around, and most of us live in houses or live in apartments. Our Class A is the best buildings with aesthetics, the age, the quality of infrastructure, and the location. They're prime location. They have the best infrastructure, your granite countertops, your top of the line carpet, ACs, swimming pools, clubhouses, gyms, right? Pretty much built, within, the last 2 or 3 years. You get top of the market rent out of those. Excuse me. You get top of the market rent out of those. They're on-site management. They have on-site maintenance. So, some have trash takeout, you drop it off at the door, and you end up paying for those amenities in a Class A environment. Okay. Then you got your Class B. Those are buildings that are usually older and not as competitive price wise as an A. Investors target these, right, for restoration, and we call that a value add. And the reason it's a value add is because, like I mentioned earlier, me and Amanda can run the same mobile home park, right? We bought it for the same price, and she runs hers way better than I run mine. Hers is going to be more than mine, right? So if I take a Class B building and it's a value add and it's sitting, for instance, I don't know what the market rent for is in Raleigh, but I'll just say in my area, in Fayetteville, the market rent is, $900 a month. And there is a building that I'm actually looking at. It's 52 units, $4 million. And it's at about $700 a month rent. So in order for me to go in there and raise the rent, I have to go in and put about $7,000 into each unit to maximize my value. And then once I do that, I can raise the rent to 800, 850. And what that will do, as long as my expenses are low, that will raise my value up, $1 million to $2 million. So if you have a 50 unit apartment complex and you raise the rent $50 to $100, you will add about $2 million worth of value to that apartment complex. And that is why investors target those. Your Class C buildings, they're the oldest, usually over 20 years old of age, located in less attractive areas, and have a lot of expired maintenance. The owners, and I call these distressed properties, the owners or the managers are just tired of running it, right? They're done. They're older, either that or their kids inherit it and they live in California, but the property's here in North Carolina. And they don't really keep their thumb on the heartbeat. So they don't call and check the property manager. Hey, did you mow the grass? Hey, what's going on with this? And that's how I found my self-storage unit. It was just run to the ground. Grass was overgrown, trash all over the place. It had, a 1/4 acre briar patch that needed to be bush hogged. It was probably 6 or 7 feet tall. And those are the ones that you find a really good deal on as well. Class D properties, I would advise y'all to kind of stay away from these. They're old, run down, they need repairs, and we call them war zones, right? They're the places that you don't want to go at night without a weapon, right? Or if you don't want to go there at night, period. In some spots, I don't care, but I won't buy in a Class D neighborhood. Are there any questions so far?
Yeah, Randall, this is Jackie. Who determines, so this is a great definition of what the different classes are.
Uh-huh.
How does the official designation get made? Is it by an appraiser? Is it subjective? By the tax?
So it's really, at the end of the day, it is subjective. If you look, like you can, for instance, if I go to a Class B, Class B's probably isn't going to have on-site maintenance, right? Or they might not have a gym, or they might not have a pool. So I am actually doing a deal right now with the developer I talked about, and he is doing a 163 ground up development in Calabash on the golf course. Right now, this design that he has, it's 7 acres in one area, and then it's a 4 acres in another area. So each different compound, I would call them, is going to have their own like clubhouse, right? But there is only going to be one pool that is a shared amenity, because the smaller acre, they won't have enough room for a pool, right? But it'll have its own clubhouse, to have its own gym. So that's what your aesthetic, what makes it an A is, your infrastructure and your amenities, right? What makes it a B, is it's not, it's probably 10 or 15 years old. It needs some renovation, but not much. That's your class B's, and then the class C's, are 20 years or older. Did that answer your question?
It did. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Any other questions?
Was that more of an example on an apartment complex?
Yes, sir. And I know, if I'm not mistaken, you are the office building expert, correct?
I have some knowledge. I wouldn't say the expert, but yeah, I have some knowledge.
So this is based off of, multifamily. So what kind of amenities would a class A, office building bring?
Well, like you said, it's usually the newer, it might have some security. And again, it's just the quality built of the construction. So, you can change from a B to an A with improvements that you make to it.
Absolutely. And you can go from a B to an A plus if you have the room. If you have the room to add the amenities, if there's enough meat on the bones.
Right. All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other questions? All right, we're going to go on to the next slide. All right, so considerations, right? What is your niche of choice, right? Me, I'm kind of all over the place, right? So I own a mobile home park, I own a self-storage unit, I own some single family residence, right? I'm trying to get into the multifamily world. But what is your niche? What are you passionate about? When you wake up in the morning and your feet hit the floor and you go and do this and you don't feel like you're at work, that's your niche. So is it multifamily? Is it mobile home parks? Amanda's niche and her husband's niche is mobile home parks, right? They probably have it down to a science, and they know what they want, how they want, and their specific criteria. What are your goals, right? So if you don't know where you want to end up, how do you know how to get there? Right? Don't go out on a limb and get into multi-million dollars deals, because that can crush you. Right? So educate. Surround yourself with like-minded people. Understand your goals. There's a guy, his name is, I'm trying to think. So Javier's one, and there's another, everybody probably knows Grant Cardone, right? He's the big 10X fan. His goals is 10X everything, right? So if he says, hey, I want 10 doors by the end of the year, he 10X it. So I want 100 doors by the end of the year. Or if you want 100 doors, hey, I want 1,000 doors by the end of the year, right? And then there's another guy, but what he does is he's a visualizer. In order for him to be successful and get the things that he wants, he writes them down, or he puts them, in a spot that he sees every day. Like when he first started, he said, I want to own a Corvette, right? So he hung a picture of a Corvette in his, on his rearview mirror. So every day he saw that Corvette. So he seen his goals every day. And eventually, he did own a Corvette and some other properties. But You know, you have to know what you want, how to get there, in commercial, right? What's your risk tolerance? Understanding the different asset classes perform in various markets, right? And, you know, when we talk about what's your risk tolerance, right? So there's not a lot of risk in a class A property, right? You're top of the tier, you know, you're getting, you know, a market rent, or if not above market rent, you know. Then you got your D class, which is the extreme opposite. They're ready to fall down, need lots of maintenance, need lots of repairs, right? Your tenants are calling you day in and day out. Is that something that you want to take on a daily basis? So understand your risk, understand your tolerance and what you're able to handle. And how involved do you want to be, right? So when you're dealing in commercial real estate, you can be as hands-on as you want to be, right? And that's called a general partner, right? And then you can be as passive as you want to be, and that's a limited partner. And I'm actually a limited partner right now in a 164 door deal in Atlanta, Georgia. It's called Maple Haven, and it's cash flows from day one. And I will get, when it's all said and done, my total IRR will be about 22%, which is an internal rate of return. And then my cash on cash will be annually be between 10 and 15%. So I donated, you know, I didn't donate, but I funded, you know, $40,000. So just base it off of 10% every year without me doing a thing, I will make $4,000. In 3 years, I will get my $40,000 back, and I will continue to get my 10% cash on cash return until they sell it. And then when they sell it, it will get split up between the investors. 70% of the proceeds go to the investors. 30% of the proceeds go to the GPs, and they do all the work, right? But at the end of the day, I will turn $40,000 into roughly $75,000 in 7 years by not doing things, just investing into deals. Okay. So that's kind of where you got to figure out what you want to do. You just want to sit back and collect a mailbox check and do all that, or if you actually want to go in and find the deals and, you know, raise the capital and do all of the legwork, then you would want to be a GP. All right. So any questions in reference to your considerations? Let's see, do I have any questions? Yeah, Rod Khalif. That is him. Thank you, Miss Hardy. I couldn't think of the name. I actually went to one of his seminars, virtual. Great. Okay.
Randall, there's one question here from Jennifer. I don't know if you hit it yet. Is it common to buy land and lease it to a real estate developer to build Class A commercial real estate on it?
Okay, so when it comes, there it is. I see it. When it comes to buying land, so the deal that's in Calabash, I can talk about. Developers love to partner, right? So for instance, the Calabash deal is 11 acres and it sits on a golf course and it's like $1.7 million, right? So what my developer is doing is he is partnering with them. So they're donating the land and they're getting about $1.7 million worth of equity in the total deal. Right. So that's how the developers work. So if you have some land that's in a good area, in a great location, and it's, you know, zoned for commercial, or if you can go to the planning board and you can get it zoned commercial, whether it be, you know, it'd be 8, 12, 16, 20. And all that is that when you're zoned commercial for multifamily, it'll have a number at the end of it. And that's just how many multifamily units can be built on 1 acre. So I am working on another deal in Winston-Salem that the planning department will not let them build no more than 12 doors on 1 acre. and they were hoping to get 12 to 20. But the planning department was like, no, 12 is as max as we can go right now. I'm also
Randall,
yes, ma'am.
I think what she was asking though, if I'm correct, Jennifer, is can you do a land lease? Can you continue to own the land and let them build it? Because there are long-term land leases out there.
I am not familiar. If I'm not mistaken, that would be a triple net lease.
Yep.
I am not versed on triple net lease, so I cannot. And that I just learned about that today. And when we talk about going and learning and talking, I literally have been in real estate since 2011, and that is the first time that I have learned about it. But I will talk to my developer and see if that is something that can be done, or do a little bit more research. But I don't see why I couldn't. If a McDonald's or a Wendy's doing a triple net lease and they're building buildings and taking care of the land and the taxes and any repairs that need to be done and building parking lots, I don't see why it couldn't be done in an apartment complex.
It can be done, and it definitely is done. The question was, is it common? I don't know if it's common, but it's definitely done.
Okay.
So would the more common route be to have the land and then just partner with the developer if you wanted to go down that route?
Absolutely. Right now, just with my developer, right now I have 3 deals that is exactly that. Somebody brought the land, he's building the buildings, and they're partnering, and they get land valuation of equity in the deal. So
I'll share a little bit. I mean, the answer to the question, it is not very common at all. The only time you'll see it might be Rite Aid or
yep.
Dollar General, that they'll do a 99-year lease.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of that 99 year, that building's to the landowner, but it's
Yep.
not something that's done very often.
It's
Yeah.
also common with, like, for example, the US Post Office. They do it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. And that would be considered a triple net lease.
Yeah, but there's also can be triple net leases that aren't just for, I mean, anytime you rent a commercial building where the tenant pays the taxes and that's triple net as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, like you were saying, the triple net lease refers to the taxes, insurance, and common area maintenance. So that's what they're referring to. On the triple.
Anytime your tenant pays those 3 items, it's a triple net lease, so whether it's a building or land.
Yep.
And the triple net lease you see on most all buildings.
Mm-hmm. Okay, hopefully that answered your question. If not, let me know, shoot me an email. I'll have my business card at the end, and I will get you the answer to that question from a more.
No, that was really helpful. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll give you an example. I just took under contract last week in a condominium development on 2 pads that we thought the pads would be ours, but they were long-term leases to the condo association. So I withdrew my offer. I'm not going to do a lease on a property like that.
I agree. Anything else? All right, we'll be moving right along. All right, so the commercial pros and cons, right? So one deal, unlimited doors, less risk, right? So everybody in the room has experienced at some point in time, some sort of purchase or sale of a residential property. It's the same steps as commercial, except for it's in a larger scale. So you still have your due diligence period. You still have inspections. You still have insurance, things like that. You just do it at once for 50 doors, right? You got to get a loan. You do it once for 50 doors instead of having to go, hey, I'm going to own 50 single family homes. Well, now you got to pay 50 inspections. You got to have 50 due diligence. You got to have 50 sets of insurances. Here you just have one, right? And depending on if you buy a residential area all over, then you might have 10 or 15 different property managers. Here you'll have one, right? So that is a pro in my eye. I really enjoy, doing that. And then other people's money, right? And I kind of hit on this. when we were talking about, limited partners and general partners. So other people's money is I'm raising capital for, a $4 million deal. Here's my returns. You guys and gals want to be passive investors. You bring me the money. I give you a PPM, which is a private placement memorandum, and it kind of lays out the laws drawn up by an attorney that says what I can and can't do with the money and what happens if, because it's like any other investment, it could tank or it could skyrocket, right? You have less investor competition. Today at my mastermind, I learned that every year approximately 4,000 multifamily units are sold, right? And just like any other real estate investment, it is a relationship built process. So if I build a relationship with someone who owns a multifamily apartment complex who isn't ready to sell, but I stay in contact with him every, 30 or 45 days, more than likely, if he is one of those 4,000 multifamilies that's going to be sold and I have built that relationship, he will sell to me. Without doing data and CRM, we have a likelihood of 0.2% of buying a multifamily deal, right? So there is, and we say less investor competition, but there's also less being sold. So out of 80,000 multifamily units across the United States, the guy said about 4,000 are sold every year, right? And it just continues the cycle. I've already touched base on the value base on operations, right? If you have great systems and processes and your expenses are low, your value goes through the roof, right? If your expenses are high and you run it, then it goes down. It's easier to manage multiple properties. Like I said, instead of having 5 or 10 property managers, you really only have one property manager. You have one person to talk to. They have a maintenance team, right? In X, Y, and Z. All right, now let's talk about the cons a little bit, right? More personal capital at risk. All right, so there's numerous ways that we can get into this. We'll talk syndication, at a later date, but syndication is, hey, I brought a deal, I'm raising capital. So it's, 506B, which is like your friends and family, the friends that you're close to, your family, you can bring them on, or you have 506C, which is accredited. You got to make $200,000 a year for the last 3 years, or you got to have a net worth of over $1 million, or if you're married, you got to bring in net $300,000 a year for the last 3 years. And they start out at, hey, some people say, hey, it's a minimum investment of $25,000, $50,000, $100,000. So that's where there's a lot of capital at risk. And one thing I want to mention about this is commercial real estate is a team sport, right? Because I don't know how many of us in this room can bring down a $4 or $5 million deal by ourselves. I know I can't. Maybe one day I will. But even the guys and gals that I talk to that, have $50 million worth of assets in multifamily and 690 doors, they don't take deals down by themselves. They bring on investors and they have a team. Again, high barrier to entry. When you can find your smaller deals, your 5 or your 10 or your 15 or your 20 door deals. But still, at the end of the day, I talked to a wholesaler based out of Charlotte today, and he's getting ready to close on a 21 unit deal, value add, and it's $600,000, right? And him and his partner are doing that. And it's more difficult to diversify, right? Because when you find your niche, it's, at 4,000 multifamily units being sold a year, it's hard to find those good deals. Okay. Any questions in reference to pros and cons? I got about 9 minutes.
Yeah, Randall, you were talking about your one investment, you put like 40,000 in 7 years. Did you say
Uh-huh.
with your return, you would receive like 70?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Um, so the average deals on what you're talking about, multifamily, what is generally the investment amount that is having to be put in?
Again, so depending on the project, so this one, they needed to do a $5 million raise just in order to buy the project. We have an offer in on one in Tennessee right now, that once it gets accepted, we will probably have to raise 1.5 million, just to come to the table. So we will probably do a 506B, and we will probably start out at about $25,000.
Yeah, one comment you made about commercial is definitely a team. I mean, when you get into commercial, and to me, I know you talk about a lot of multifamily. I hear a lot of people talk about multifamily. I'm talking about more office, industrial, retail. When you do get into those categories, it is definitely partners. It's not something that generally one person is doing by themselves. It's usually, 3 to 4, because again, the dollar amounts being put in are higher. I would definitely like to learn more about the syndication. I deal with Smith Anderson, the law firm. I got 4 different attorneys I deal with there, one on real estate, one on contracts, one in employment law, and syndication is one getting to work with Curtis Brewer, because I know you got to be careful with the SEC crossing the line. And that's
Absolutely.
an area that I don't want to get into. It's fine to, if there's somebody that's looking at partnering with somebody that is the tenant, you don't have a problem there. But it's like, if I've only talked to you maybe 1 or 2 times and I'm trying to, get you to invest, I'm just, that would be an area that I'd definitely be interested in.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah, that would be great. There are all, like you were saying, there are so many legal things, right? If you're gonna have accredited investors, or if you're not, and then if you're not, do you have that pre-existing relationship? We'll definitely look at how to get somebody on to talk about that. Either we may want to get a syndication lawyer, and probably even maybe somebody who puts together syndications to come in and talk about the GP perspective of it as well, like 2 different sides.
yeah, Amanda, I can work that. I already talked to my mastermind leader today. He's based out of Raleigh. So I told him, once this group gets up and going and, we get to an in-person meeting, I would love for him to come out and talk. He's a little short. He's a little short guy. So, good news. Our LOI was accepted and assigned. Yes. Great news. Great news.
Oh, okay. Well, Randall, how did you go about finding your partners? Like, how did you go about finding partners for your 40 unit, and then on your different deals that you have? How did you go about meeting these people?
So the self-storage unit was a JV, and my partner brought him on. So JV, we could talk JV deals as well.
Masterminds is another.
Masterminds, education groups, networking,
Conferences.
Yep, conferences. If you go out, you might have a friend, like you might have a friend that is an expert at, property management, right? And you be like, hey, I found this deal. I really want, bring them on, because then they can manage the property. So you like to find people and partners that, feed off of you and complement your negative areas. Like me, I hate underwriting. I absolutely hate crunching numbers. But my partner loves to underwrite deals. Like, she lives for it. She teaches a class every Thursday, and I will bring her on as well to teach us how to underwrite deals. But she's in transition right now. She's actually moving to Tennessee. She flies Blackhawks, and she's, a lieutenant colonel fixing to take command. So when she has time, I will bring her on to teach us a quick underwriting class, right? Because you can't just jump into a multifamily deal. You got to get the underwriting. You got to get the T12s. You got to get the rent roll. You got to get the expenses, you know, you got to get vacancies, their insurance, property management fees. There's all kinds of things that play into effect on, is this a good deal or is this not a good deal? Right. So you can't just go up to the house and be like, oh man, yeah, they want $15,000 for this. Okay, yeah, it's good. Right. When you're dealing in lots of zeros, you got to make sure you dot your I's and you cross your T's. Okay. Any more questions or comments? It seems like I'm gonna go over on time. Are we okay with that, Tria?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as they're hanging, you can talk.
All right. Hey, so we'll go over some terms real quick. So cap rate. The cap rate is the property's net annual rental income divided by the property's current value, right? Same pretty much. ARV cap rate. A lot of people that are in the, you know, the commercial real estate, they love cap rates. They're like, oh, this is a 7 cap rate, this is a 6 cap rate, or this is a 5, or, you know, a 4. And all that is it's the property's net annual income divided by the property's current value. Okay. And we can get the current value. I'll teach that later on, how we get that, but it's similar. You take, you know, the cap rate and then you divide it by, you know, by the property value. And then, you know, so it's pretty simple. And then you got your gross potential rent. This is the amount of collectible rent from a multi-tenant property, assuming that all rents are paid. So if you've got 50 properties and you're getting $1,000 a month, right? Your gross potential rent could be $50,000, right? And then your gross rent is the total amount of rent divided among the months for which the tenant is responsible for. Our gross rent, which is how much rent actually got paid. All right. And then NOI, that is your net operating income. That is what you bring home, right? That is what you bring home before debt. Debt is not included in your NOI. So if I make $100,000 a year off my property and I pay, you know, $6,000 a month, that is $72,000. So at the end of the time, I only bring home $38,000 in my pocket. That is what I bring home. But the NOI is everything before the debt. So your property management fees, your maintenance, you know, your court costs, you know, if you pay the water bill or the electric bill, you know, if you have to paint or anything like that. So I can go on with terms, you know, LP, GP, KP, you know, everybody is doors. And when we talk, and here's the good thing too, right? When we talk about doors, everybody in the commercial real estate says, oh, I have 690 doors. I have 700 doors, or I have 1,000 doors, right? And I could probably ask Amanda this, hey, Amanda, you say I have, how many mobile home parks do you own? Right?
We have 60 lots, a little different
60
there.
lots, right? So she owns 60 spots. Now, out of that 60 spots, how much of that is yours?
54.
So 54. So 6 of them are not. So in the multifamily world, I can say I own 600 doors, right? I could say, for example, my LP deal in Atlanta, 164 doors, right? I said I'm an LP in 164 deals, but when I talk to other multifamily investors, I say I own 164 deals. But guess what? I only own a small percentage of 164 deals. So when people say, hey, I own 700 doors or I own 800 doors, the real question is, okay, how much of those 800 doors do you own, right? Because the key in commercial real estate is I rather have 30% of something than 60% of nothing, right? So if I bring, just for instance, you know, the Calabash deal, I keep talking about the deal because it's fresh in my mind. I get, between me and my 3 partners, we get 2%. So we get a 2% based off of the total deal price, which was $29 million, which came out to a little less than $600,000. So for one phone call, right, I made $150,000 when the deal closes. And you don't have to, and that's the good thing about commercial real estate. There's plenty of ways to get into commercial real estate. You might have a deal that you know of, or that your family owns and your family wants to sell it, and you bring it to somebody and say, hey, I brought you this deal, you know, how can you assist me? Hey, okay, well, I'll give you, you know, if we close on it, I'll give you, you know, 5% or 10% of the deal, right? 10% of, you know, $2 million is pretty good amount of change versus 0%, right? So you always gotta, you know, always gotta be looking. There's always ways. And the key takeaway that I would say about commercial real estate is, what value do you bring to the table, right? That is the easiest way to get into, you know, multifamily real estate, because bringing value. I have not purchased, I have not done any deals by myself. I've always brought deals to people that I know can take them down, and I get into the deal that way. I get a percentage of the deal that way, right? So, you know, don't say, oh man, this deal's too big. Do you know somebody who can take it down? Hey, let me call Randall. He might know somebody that can take it down, and then me and him can, you know, join the team, right? So it's all about just bringing the value. Okay. Any questions so far? I see I have one up here. Yes, I definitely agree, Evan, about bringing in someone to talk syndication and the PPM process from the GP perspective. I would work that, as long as, you know, we keep having 41 or 50 attendants, you know, because time is money, and these guys that I deal with, they don't have a lot of time. Like today we're at the mastermind, and the Javier, he went from 19 months, he went to flipping homes to owning 690 doors as a GP, right? And he only owns percentages of that 690 doors because he brings on a team, but he now has $50 million worth of assets. All right. So question and answers, you know, there's my card, screenshot it, take it down. There's my website, my email. I also have a self-storage website. It's called Military First Self-Storage. If you're ever in the Fayetteville area and need somewhere to store, look me up. If you just want to chit chat about commercial real estate, or you have any questions, feel free to call me, text me, email me. I'm pretty good at responding, because that's another key to success in commercial real estate. You know, once you get into this and you start talking to brokers, commercial brokers, and you have to build that relationship. You don't want to just talk to that one broker and be like, hey, I'm looking for this, but then he sends you a deal and you don't respond, right? You think he's going to send you another deal? Absolutely not. Right. So at least if the deal doesn't meet your criteria, right, just, hey, this doesn't meet my criteria. Thanks for sending it to me, you know, X, Y, and Z. And, you know, you will build that relationship. I've got a broker out of Tennessee that I do the same thing to, you know, and I know somebody's husband is a broker, if I'm not mistaken, in here, and I'm sure he will be able to attest to the same thing. Are there any questions? I went 5 minutes over.
Thank you, Randall, for talking today. Send us, if you want to, put it in the chat now, email us, anything. What topics do you guys want? Where are you in the commercial real estate world? Are you just learning about it? Are you in residential? Are you already in commercial real estate? We want to make sure that we're having topics that really fit what the group wants. So please be vocal. Let us know what you want to hear about, and we can make it happen.
Amanda and Randall, appreciate your presentation.
Thanks, Richard. We're gonna get you on to present some point,
Yeah.
not off the hook.
More.
For sure, as many as we can get. That's great.
Yeah.
Great presentation, Randall. Thank you so much for this introduction. I know we've just scratched the surface, and every month it's just going to be a little bit more knowledge for everybody, and everybody just really needs to pay attention. If this is something that interests you, then take a lot of notes.
Yep. And you know, while we're here, you know, just outside of Tria, find a Facebook group. Right, there's numerous of Facebook groups out there. The commercial real estate realm, multifamily, is very, very open arms. They will accept you, they will hug you, they will love you, they will coach you, they will teach you. But you know, at the end of the day, you have to, if this is something you're serious about, you have to invest in yourself.
Yeah.
Right. I've paid probably in the last 6 months since I've gotten out of the Army, I've spent $10,000 just on education alone.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's right.
So you have to educate yourself.
Exactly. Thank you for pointing that out, Randall. It's you know, everybody has got the knowledge and the experience, but they've paid to get that knowledge and experience. So but definitely this is going to be the place to go going forward as far as our members go, to learn about commercial real estate, and just keep an eye on the calendar for next month. I can't wait to see what the topic is going to be. And like Amanda said, send your ideas in either directly to Amanda, or you can send them to either Jackie, Tria Publicity @gmail, or myself, Tria VP @gmail, and we'll make sure to pass them along. And we just like to cover topics that everybody's interested in. So, and that's going to help them. But this has been a great start. And yep, we're over, but that's okay because we're all still here.
Right.
And thanks very much, Randall, for your time and your knowledge. And Amanda, we look forward to seeing what the future brings for our commercial real estate investors group. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Excellent. Everybody have a good night and stay safe.
Next time, remember to get on have needs and wants in September.
Yeah. Keep an eye on the calendar, but definitely have needs and wants. It's a good one.
Bye-bye,
Let's do
y'all.
some, let's
Good
do
night,
some
everyone.
deals.
Thanks. It was a great meeting. Thanks, everyone.
Night, everybody.
Night.
Bye.
That was great.
Yeah.
Well, that was a good one, huh?
Yeah, real good.
Okay, well, apparently everybody's asking for the recording.
So just send them the slides. Just get them the slides from Randall and we can email them.
That's what I said to Amanda. I says, we're not providing recordings at this point in time, but if you send us the slides, we'll make sure all the attendees get them. So